welcome to the latest episode of the White Pube podcast. My name is Gabrielle Del Puente.
And I'm Zarina Mohammed.
And we are back for our first major podcast of 2023. Hello, I hope you are okay. Today's episode is going to be a revisited. So the White Pube's been knocking around for quite some time at this point. We started writing about art in 2015. And it means that we have this embarrassing archive of stuff that is literally on the internet for everyone to laugh at. But we want to laugh with you. So we've chosen a text from 2016 and we're going to reread it today. Don't judge me. I mean, judge me, but
no excusing it. First of all, I think it's good. We're jumping the gun. I think it's good. I love this text. But when you said 2015 and 2016, something inside me felt deeply ill.
Yeah, it's 2023.
That's a long time ago.
Disgusting.
We graduated in 2016, which is actually disgusting when you think about it.
I know.
We're aged.
We are mature art writers. Anyway, so we are going to be rereading a text which was a review of an exhibition by the artist Jessie Darling, and it was in Arcadia Missa when it was back in South London in one of the railway arches, and that's all I'm going to say. Okay, don't laugh at me. I remember a party last year where I was just not having it. A friend turned to ask if I was okay, and it wasn't that I was upset about anything, but I wasn't happy either. I said, I'm comme ci, comme ça, and it was the most focused stability, this stiff middle ground as I was stuck amongst chatty people and coke and depressants and music, present and quiet. I really didn't want to speak to anyone or to myself. I didn't need to. I didn't like the great near, but I didn't dislike it either. I was near and okay, even as my body shifted awkward through this soft apocalyptic fantasy set. I didn't have to speak again. I was just fine with the decisions and arrangement, that particular and insular rationale of ingredients and appendage. Fine going about witnessing formula and wanting a better word than formula. It's what I want the orange diamond emoji to mean, the insideness of the person, what they bring, what they lean into. While the friends I went with thought that the 3 gatekeeper sculpture bodies were ominous and the train over Arcadia Missa was music, intermittent and aggressive. I missed that reaction. I was levelled. Even as I recognised upset in the pieces, in the crutch protrusion, the Bernie skin, the wood offcut supports, the poking horse heads. I thought that maybe it was a good thing that I'd missed affect completely, my aloof satisfaction, safe, okay. I haven't made my mind up about this ambivalence yet. I don't know what I want. I know my body, how after I've been sick, I'll play it safe and have a piece of toast when really I want orange juice and lasagna, even if I suspect I'll throw it back up. Kind of a drag, inoffensive, safe, present and quiet, I think. This exhibition is like a stomach settling. The end. Super fast. 2 paragraphs. A review. Early days. What happened next was that we got a tweet about the text from the artist who I was writing about, which was quite unusual. We had 100 followers on Twitter and we were just writing into the ether loudly. We were shouting, banging a pan into a cave or something. So it was kind of amazing that an echo came back out, and it was the artist who tweeted,
I know it off by heart. This is my time to shine. Not facetious or ironic. This might be the harshest, most true review, because the White Pube channels somatic currents, not just fucking with discourse.
Yeah. So let's break that down for a second. We started writing about art because we thought that the way that essentially newspaper critics approached art was fucking boring and irrelevant and just safe to the point of being pointless. because all they would do is like describe what was in the room, 3 stars, I'm out. We thought that it would be fun for us to try to write about art in a different way, in like a way that said something. What that was or how it was, like, we didn't really know at this point. It was only like 5-ish months before we published this review that I've just read out. So like we were in that kind of really amazing stage in creating something where like you don't know what it is yet. And I think that was one of the most surprising things that I discovered in the process of doing a fine art degree, because we were third years at the time. Like, sometimes you make something and it's like, where the fuck did this come from? And like, what is it?
Yeah.
And
what's it doing in the world? Like, where's it going?
Yeah.
It's that.
Because it's come from you. And maybe there is a way to like attach words to that. Like, but sometimes it would take making the thing absolutely without consciousness and then having a crate or a tutorial or like a chat with someone else in the studio in order to like decipher it and figure out if there was any fucking point to it. But we I think both of us early days didn't necessarily see the White Pube as, you know, applying to that same logic. Like,
no, yeah, we didn't see it as work.
We thought art was art and writing was writing, and wasn't until the artist tweeted that I stopped and thought, oh my god, like, yeah, maybe we have been needing this strange outsider perspective in order to show us like what the fuck we've been doing, and that's kind of important that it came from an artist, because you know, they were the people, they had become the subject of our art. And when you're making your own art in the studio, maybe you are the subject, or like the subject is this thing out and that doesn't exist. Like, it was important for us to realize, one, that we were responding to like a living human being, and two, to hear back from that person about the effect that we'd had on them. Because this isn't a good review. I'm not saying this is like the best thing I've ever seen and it's changed my life and like, oh my god, these are all the ways that I feel I found value in the artwork, and actually I also recommend that you go and see it. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying this made me feel completely blank. So
yeah. And actually, I think that ambivalence, that's the word you use. That ambivalence for me is why this review, it doesn't matter how far we move, how many years down the line we get from it. This is, in my mind, the like white pube review. Because like in the same way that you say oh, these newspaper critics, they don't really talk about anything beyond the description in the room. So did like the critics in low key art review and like all these journals that like our tutors would recommend we read and we never would. Because that's like the point that all criticism moves from, right? The idea that the critic has something to say, it's an opinion, and you were just kind of like, this left me blank, ambivalent.
I don't have
That's honest.
Opinion. Yeah. What I like about this review is like its speed and how little I worry about the reader in the process of putting it together. What I'm doing IRL on Monday the 23rd of January is panicking about a review I've got to write this week, which is of a video game called God of War Ragnarok, which is a huge title that has come at the end of like 1 million games in a series, and I have to make a decision about whether I'm going to write for people who've played it, write for people who haven't played it, write for people who've played it and got to the end and are okay with spoilers, or write for art people who don't even own PlayStations. Like, it is this new stressful audience size that has made me super self-conscious. And I sometimes that isn't stressful. Sometimes it becomes like a really nice puzzle to figure out what the answer to that is and how I want to speak. But back then I wasn't thinking about any of that. And I wasn't thinking about whether someone had or hadn't been to the exhibition. Maybe I was thinking about the artist, if anyone, because the artist knows and I don't have to describe too much about what's in the room, and I'm just offering that reaction and that's it. But even that, I don't know, it's just, I'm looking at it, 2 paragraphs, and thinking, fucking hell, I don't have the balls to do that anymore.
What, just from the brevity, like the length, or like the lack of explanation?
Yeah, from the brevity of it, because now our texts are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 words, and this is probably like 300. It's so there's something happened with, as the audience of the White Pube got bigger, I felt the need to give people more in return. And when we got a Patreon account and when we got a few hundred Patreon supporters, I think it's now around 700, like, if those people are giving us money month on month, even if it's £1 a month, I'm like, well, I've got to give them the money's worth. I've got to write 6,000 words. And actually, some of those 6,000 word essays I've written are probably not as effective or successful as this.
I think it's more than just like length as well, because I think it's like we've got to give them the money's worth, not just in terms of like the length of the content that we're putting out there. I want to take the time to explain, because not everyone will have seen the show. Not everyone will know the artist, or like have seen like even Instagram photos of like the in-store shots. We've got to cover our bases now, haven't we? We've got to be like, okay, well, this is what it looks like. This is the description of like the room, the vibe, the journey up, or the lead in, like the mood I was in entering the room. And that's why I think this, in relation to these paintings or whatever, like I want to explain like a wider, it's like the radius of the circle has expanded beyond me, myself, and like the artist. It's like I need to explain, I need to cover more ground with my explanations. Do you feel that way?
So everyone can be involved and can read from the beginning to the end of the text and stay like on track. And I feel that way. I also feel reminded of the fact that, you know, between that 2016 point and where we're at now, we've had many interactions with readers, some good, some terrifying, and many in the middle that were just, oh, here's a question that I had for you about the text. And I think when I'm writing, I'm trying to predict what those questions are going to be and answer them before it's even published. So not so that I shut off any conversation, but so that that person is like provided for.
Yeah.
I think, there's some generosity in like the more recent length of the texts, but also probably a little bit of fear. Like, we always, between us, like talk about it as trying to make a text watertight. Like, I don't want any major leaks. And now it means that I try to start writing a text as early as possible so that I've got enough running time so that I can stop and think and zoom out and see where the leaks might be. Because when you're up close to like a computer screen all day, sometimes you just can't tell what you're missing. But in contrast, I didn't do that for this. Like, for this exhibition review that we read earlier at the beginning of the podcast, like I wrote it so fast and I probably took half an hour to edit it, and then I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. And it's just making me reflect on like the sheer difference in the approach, and maybe there's something to be reminded of in the posts like this so that we can bring it back a little bit.
Yeah. Maybe it's not like bringing it back like a regressive move. Maybe it's like bringing it back like always having the same anchor point that you return to, and no matter how far you move over like in one direction, like there's still kind of an internal compass of like what you're trying to do.
I think the anchor in the middle of it is that Jessie Darling tweet, and maybe like we should very quickly break down what it actually meant from our end, because we sort of skipped over it. Like, repeat it, go on, from memory. Do the trick.
Not facetious or ironic, this might be the harshest, most true review, because the White Pube are channeling somatic currents, not just fucking with discourse.
The second part of that is saying that we are writing from the body. Somatic means relating to the body. So rather than us fucking with discourse and relying on theory and art history and just like the general contemporary trends in philosophy, we're so like turned away from it and just looking in ourselves and at the physical reaction that we had in the process of encountering an artwork, like, and that is what feels true. I think the word true in that tweet this might be the harshest, most true review. Like, I really have taken that to heart and come to feel that, like, there is some kind of performativity in everybody else's objective approach to critical writing, where they're like, you know, whether it is food writing or art or whatever it is, like, I am the most important critic in the world, and you better fucking agree with what I say, because it's important and I'm important and what I say is true. Like, I don't think that's true just because you say it is. I think our approach of like, what happened to me when I went into this show? Like, I know between me and myself that is true and that's what happened, and I felt that way. So if I just put that out of myself and onto paper, then that feels like it's more on a level, and there isn't too big of a performativity that comes along with it, because I'm just pulling something from outside of myself and giving it to the artist or the reader. And I love that. And I think, yeah, like now when I'm struggling to write something, I just have to stop and think, well, actually, how did I actually feel in that moment? Like yesterday, I was out for Chinese New Year celebrations in Liverpool, and they have kung fu schools out on the streets doing the lion dance, and it's kind of really exciting, and there's like super loud firecrackers and smoke, and I was stood really far away to the point where like I was having to hold my phone up and zoom in fully on my phone to be able to see what was happening. So like when the moment hit that the firecrackers went off and all the smoke went into the air, I sort of missed the reaction of it, because I was like arms up, tired, trying to like go on my tiptoes and trying to see it through my phone. I just felt like, yeah, what? Like, what? Something's getting in the way of that moment. Even now, just out, you know, I'm never gonna write about that moment. I never thought I would mention it on the podcast the next day. Like, just the physical angle that I had to put my body at to try and like see something happening really far away made it like pass me by in a way that if I was up close, I would feel like rocked by it and really like stunned and amazed, and I could smell the smoke and I could see the lights that were flashing, and I'd be able to see how close the performers were to the fire and things like that. So there's just something about the like methodology of channeling somatic currents that I love it, and I just carry it's just with me all the time now. It's huge.
As an example, I think that's really good, because like so many people in like academia or like the arts, and like so many people that make up the discourse, right? They have this shorthand for this way of writing, like channeling somatic currents. Like it can be really cerebral as a thing you're trying to do. Like it can be quite like manufactured, or like not manufactured but intentional, right? Like most people do it and they call it like addressing positionality, or like positionality. And I've like every time I've heard that word, like, oh, acknowledging the subject's positionality, I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? Like positionality, are you fucking crazy? Like what does that mean? But like I think that as an example, it makes it spatial.
Yeah.
Right?
Spatial,
like
and
it's
like
literally about your position in the crowd. Like, and that I feel like my brain is getting hot just thinking about this. Like it's not just like a spatial thing, like your position in the crowd, but like your position in the world, and like your position in a room as you enter the gallery. Like, what does your position feel like? Like not just spatially, but like emotionally, and all these other ways. Yeah.
And the fact that that can apply to like disability is also so interesting to me now, like even more than it was in 2015, 16. Like stood there trying to strain to see the Chinese New Year performances. Like I was dizzy and I was really hungry, and I was starting to get nauseous because I was so hungry. Like I was aware of my energy and thinking, okay, I'm probably gonna have to go and find a seat soon. Like maybe I shouldn't actually wait for the finale, because like, is it worth me feeling this rocky just to hold on to see some like loud bangs? or is it more important that I physically feel comfortable somewhere else? And actually like weighing up which one is more important to me is now how I approach galleries in general. Like the other day I went on like a pure marathon around Liverpool, going to like Tate, Bluecoat, Fact, and then the Bridewell to see an exhibition, and it was 9,000 steps or something crazy. And it is constantly an assessment of is it worth it? And at times it felt worth it because art was able to put me into such like a loopy space that I felt, yeah, like the world was like slippy because I'd seen all this strange abstract art. But other times it isn't. Like other times the art on the wall is not worth feeling like dizzy for. And that I think is making me want to write about art again after writing about games for a year or two. To like reassess that positionality, the spatial and the physical. Like, can the art stand up to it? Like, it's so much effort to leave the house, and that's not just for me, but that's for everyone, because fucking travel and everything is terrible, and it costs money to go outside.
Fucking have at it. Like, I'm thrilled. I'm getting really close to the mic. I'm so excited because I feel like I've been wanting you to like return to art now with like, I don't know, having been through I think writing about games has like readjusted or recalibrated your like aesthetic compass, or like the compass of your expectations when you're like walking into a gallery. I think you'd have a completely different set of expectations and criticisms to air with an artist or with a gallery or with an audience even. Like it would just give you such an interesting angle. So I'm fucking jazzed for that.
Oh yeah.
But can I ask a question? Because I actually wonder this when you do it, right? I wonder about this when you do it. But so we whip this out in every lecture that we do, and every time it's like a little bit different, or like you edit live and direct in the moment in the lecture hall on Zoom. And I want to ask about the logic behind that. Like, first of all, why do you edit? Second of all, what do you find yourself changing or like wanting to change?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do live edit this because I'm always just reading it on my phone, so the audience can't see what I'm changing. Like, I can get away with it. I edit it because there are certain words in certain places that I don't like, or especially words that are repeated too many times, and I don't like the repetition. I'd rather put different things there, or just like cut that sentence completely, because it feels like a bit lazy or something, like I just not imaginative enough or something.
Like it's not been polished.
Yeah, like even the fact I just said or something twice, that's what I'm talking about. It just wasn't tight enough in the original version. I also add a detail at the beginning. So I say, I remember a party last year where I was just not having it. And then I always say, because I'd taken MDMA, which is like a huge part of it that I'm kind of surprised I didn't actually put in the original. And there's a regret there, because like in terms of responding to the way your body feels, I think it's worth putting the explanation as to why your body feels that way in the thing.
It's weirdly prudish of you to have not mentioned it in the text.
I don't know why. I honestly really don't know why I didn't do it. So it was a house party in my flat, the one on Caledonian Road, that I used to live in at the end of university. I'd had MDMA before, but it was always a much more energetic reaction and kind of like just excitable and like, wow, like the lights, the colours, how good does this music feel, like super, positive, nice up reaction. And then maybe it wasn't even MDMA, it was maybe I'd been given something else, but it just felt like the party around me just became so like close to boring. Like I just wasn't interested in it, which is why when I went to the exhibition that came back to mind, because it was such an interesting weird evening. Like I had been enjoying the party, and I'd been chatting to people and playing music and like taking fun pictures, and everyone was dolled up and it was just like fun house party. And then post taking illegal substances, it was so fucking like, what's the point? Not in a existential way, but just like it felt really physical, and like everything had just come to a standstill. I don't know what it was. I don't know why it happened, but I was like, I just want this to be over now because I'm done. It was very much like, I'm done. And then, when I went to the show, I felt similar. So part of me also, since writing this, has been like, when things like that happen, if you take something and you feel this particularly interesting state, like if your body is able to add like a new state to its experiences, then it's worth
it's repertoire.
It's worth like keeping those in mind, because maybe like they can be referenced in order to make a cultural review way more
Are you trying to make a case that this Molly was tax deductible?
I don't think I paid for it. No. But like, in terms of us like justifying how we feel about a cultural object in the reviews, and those texts getting like bigger and bigger and more intricate, part of the reason for that reasoning is like, I just want to make sure that people know where I'm coming from. I want them to know my compass points for good and bad, and we're never in each other's bodies in that way to be able to know how we each react to certain stimulus. Like, I want to be able to put that kind of almost like biological description into a text, or like a psychological background, whatever it is, just so someone understands the truth of it to me. Does that make sense? And that's what happened here.
Yeah. Bear with me on this one. I've been thinking about years and years and years ago, we went to Dublin to do a summer school. We were, I think, teaching like one day on the summer school with Morgan Quaintance. And he was like presenting this text that someone else had written entirely. And it was really plain, like not in a bad way, just like quite sparse, direct, plain language. And then there was like one simile to describe like a really grotesque thing that like was happening in and around this thing. And it just, the way everyone spoke about it, I was kind of like listening, but not really thinking too much. I was just like passive observer, ear on the wall. Everyone spoke about it like, yeah, this plain language, the lack of like adornment within the text, like it's just very matter of fact. This is what's in the room. This is what's happening. This is how people are moving and behaving. And then the simile hits. Like sometimes using a simile is like, you want it to be there, like on the button describing. And I was thinking about this like recently, because my reaction at the time was like, oh shit, I've never realized I use similes all the time. It's just the way that the feeling comes out, because I thought this at the time, and like I've not been able to kick it out of my mind since. I think those videos on Instagram of like people like shaving soap, and it's like visual ASMR. Like slowly you chip away at this shape, and it's soothing, but like I think that's what the similes do, right? It's like slimming down the area and taking away, because by describing how it feels in like one way, another way, a third way, a fourth way, a fifth way, you kind of get closer to the actual feeling itself. And like, if you don't know what like this exhibition felt like for me, let me give you a couple of examples of what it felt like, and then maybe we can locate like a common, like the overlap on that Venn diagram.
Like each one is like a foothold for the person. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's kind of, I don't know if there's something like, I don't know, maybe someone cleverer than me would have like a really good thing to say about like similes and like parallels and like finding a likeness, commonality, all of that. They'd have like a really good reference or like a sentence to sum it up in. If you're that clever person, please let us know, because I think out of all the things that we've said, that's the one that I really wonder about, because I think not just in this text, in so many other of your texts and my texts, we, between us, have this like shared language of like, this is what it felt like, you know?
Yeah.
And I wonder what that does. I reckon that's the next thing. Like 7 years in, we still got to figure out what that does. Is that just relationality, relatability, relating?
I don't know. You're sort of
Relativity.
losing me a bit.
I'm losing myself.
I was thinking a little bit about like parasocial relationships when you were speaking, and how, you know, we can't be known from any one of these texts, but over the course of 7 years, if someone has read every single one of them, they probably know us pretty well. And that's frightening.
That makes me feel a bit ill. If no shaming. If you've read all of the texts over the past 7 years, then please do write in, because we should probably be mates at this point.
Yeah,
you need to give us 7 years of yourself back.
But like, maybe it should be like, you know, on paywalls it says like, you have reached your limit of 5 articles. Like, maybe if we don't want to be known, we should only let people read like 2 a year. You can't see the full picture. That's too intimate. I say that, I'm absolutely bullshitting and just making a joke of it, because actually I really love that about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks like, what are the criticisms of this type of way of working? The criticisms it gets are fairly obvious. Like, there's a really good research article by Sarah Stang on close reading methodologies in game studies, and she says these are a few quotes. She says, social justice oriented approaches to media analysis, such as those that employ feminist, queer, crip, or critical race theory, emphasize the centrality of identity and positionality in their interpretive analysis, and work to connect mediated messages to real world oppression, which is sort of what you were touching on a little bit then, but maybe not so much oppression. She goes on to write, close reading centralizes the scholar's perspective, subjectivity, and experience, which is particularly important when the scholar occupies a less privileged subject position and can speak to systemic oppression as it is intertwined with mediated content. And I think sometimes we forget how relevant that point is to the White Pube, like, because the typical critic is like a middle-class white man who just exists in a completely different sphere to the two of us, so isn't intertwined with mediated content in the same way. So like, it is worth us putting out our reactions to offer different views.
But what does mediated content mean in that context? Maybe run that last bit back to me again.
It's particularly important when the scholar occupies a less privileged subject position and can speak to systemic oppression as it is intertwined with mediated content.
So the art would be the mediated.
Yeah. The closeness, intimacy, and vulnerability of close reading is what makes it compelling as a method. But then she says the criticism of it is like, those who occupy a less privileged subject position and are conducting what D.A. Miller calls a too close reading of media are forced into 2 roles: a confidant to whom the media object whispers its closest secrets, and an overly suspicious or paranoid viewer worried that they're just projecting their own insecurities onto the media object. The burden of subjective interpretation therefore necessitates that the too close reader put a lot of effort into supporting their analysis, i.e. proving their interpretation in as much as that is possible. Like, we've been doing that anyway.
But I think, right, this is the exact kind of clever person sentence that I need in my life, because like, I often find myself wondering about this, and I'm like, academics must have an answer, and this academic has got an answer, because I often wonder, right, this like, is it not far more interesting and crunchy for us to just be like, Look at me now. I'm the critic now. Look at me in my eyes. I'm the critic. Like, is it not more interesting and hilarious, but also like crunchy, interesting, academically valuable for us to just be like, move over Jonathan Jones, move over Adrian Searle, fuck off all these like art critic people in their polo necks. We're here and we are speaking objectively because our subjectivity is now the truth. Like, our opinions are now the truth. Maybe this is the turning point. New year, new pube. Okay, maybe fuck subjective criticism, fuck somatic currents. We speak with objective authority. Like, what if we just did that? What if we just went, well, I hate the colour pink, and anyone that uses it is I don't know, what's like the worst contemporary art insult? Is passé. They're engaging with a dead discourse. It's just not very cutting fucking edge.
The thing is, I can't even do it as a laugh. Like, I can't even put it on. I'm just like so conditioned to tell the truth.
But like, it can be the truth. It can be your truth. And then you can just be like, no, listen, it's everyone has to think this. Because we say this, like, it's just the things that come out of you naturally, right? Like, whatever pops out of your brain, like, it slips through into the real world. We always like say like, oh no, but it's just my opinion. This is just how I feel. Like, this is just my reaction to it. What if we went, no? And if like this is true. This is what it's not just for me, for everyone. What if we were like, we're establishing a discourse?
I was chatting with someone last week for the first time, and he was asking what it was like to be a critic, and said that he often watches this like music critic on YouTube, and sometimes he'll see in the comments things like, oh, thank God I was waiting for so long for this video because I wanted to see what you thought, because I, this person hadn't made up their mind, so they were waiting for the critic to tell them how to feel. And he was asking me, like, do you ever have that in your mind? Like, or does the reader ever say things like that to you? And I think readers definitely say things like that to us. But that terrifies me, because it's like picking at the parasocial, but also picking at the terrifying world of like influencers. The fact that we are art critics that are probably most known for an Instagram account with like 80,000 followers. Like, I don't want that. That's like, I know I'm like being a killjoy, but like, I just can't do it. I can't do it.
It's not killjoy. I think it's not killjoy vibes. I think what it is it's like hitting on a fundamental truth that I've never really clocked onto. And it's that critics are like the OG influencer.
Yeah.
Like, before influencers exist, before like Nikki Tutorials even came on the scene, there were all these like OG art critics like writing their missives in like esoteric journals, telling people how they should feel about like an abstract painting. And it's like that the model for influencers already existed out in the world, right? Like but like the critic was that.
And maybe some people like to be told how to feel. Is that? I think that's true. You doing a face? What are you doing a face for?
Because I had a flashback to the Fleabag season 2, where she's like in the confessional and she's like, I just want someone to tell me what to do. And then he's like, kneel. And it's just like really sexy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, some people just want to be told what to do. And it can be hot. Like, it's...
This exhibition shit. Oh, I love that.
Like, but I think that's like a very real human desire, like to kind of have something as simple as an opinion just given to you, handed to you, like not even in like a way where it's like, oh, just like I'm like so self-effaced, like it's I'm an empty vessel. Give me the answer, mighty critic. I think sometimes it's just as simple as like hearing what someone else says. Hearing what someone else thinks helps you ask yourself what you think. You can use someone else's opinion as like a sounding board to like get your own answer back.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that it is like 7 years old, this text, do you think if you'd written the same thing now, like with the same thing in mind, like the same kind of vague, like feeling and reaction, like maybe just in today's language or like today's vocabulary, right? Do you still agree with what you thought?
if I went to the same exhibition now as me,
Yeah, would you like say the same fundamental thing?
I think my reaction would probably be a little bit different now. Just because I know now that a lot of Jessie Darling's work references the experience of disability. In preparation for this podcast episode, I was doing some research, and there is like a amazingly long PDF press packet that is on Arcadia Missa's website because they still work with this artist. And the quote at the top of it says, "Over the last 10 years, Jessie Darling has explored how systems of power, government, religion, ideology, empire, and technology can be as fragile and contingent as mortal bodies." And I think that might be a more interesting way to look at the approach to sculpture and how often it is metal that is like twisted in really awkward, kind of useless ways where like it's not a chair that is functional anymore. It's like a chair that's like leaning into the wall or towering up that no one can even reach. And you know, that play of materials, all of it, I just think I would have a different approach to it now. So yeah,
positionality changes. Like,
positionality changes, yes, and that's like good. That's good. But it does mean as two critics who write online, like we often then come to disagree with the shit that we've said like very quickly.
Oh, all the time.
All the fucking
like it doesn't
time.
even take 7 years.
No,
for
it doesn't.
To look back and we've been like 7 different people in those 7 years. Like
no, and sometimes it makes me think like, you know, I think in my writing, I will go hardest on stuff that I think is hateful. Like, not that I hate it, but it is being hateful, therefore I hate it. And that somatic current approach will like, it's like the whole body is like leaning into the text and is trying to like push it away. And what I'm noticing in this lovely hour of reflection is like, when I love something, I don't think I go as hard in expressing the joy of it and like, yeah, using the text to like pull it in or pull it towards me or describe why I want it to stay close. And I think maybe like we should be more fervent when shit's good. Do you get me?
That's so interesting. I do get you, but I think I do completely the opposite. I much prefer. Last year, I think I started doing this a bit more consciously. I was like, I only want to write about things that I love.
You did say that? Yeah, true.
Don't want to write about things like shows that I didn't like anymore. Not in a like hashtag no negativity, hashtag positive vibes only. Like, not in that way, but just in a like, I wanted to write more consciously towards that fervour, that like, and I think it meant that last year I was way happier with the text that I produced.
Oh, really?
I think writing about something that you disliked can be so educational, just for yourself, to like figure out why you didn't like it. And I never really found or saw the value in like writing about something I loved because like, you know, you just love it. Like it's just, but no, I found I discovered way more about myself, what I thought, my own like internal compass for what is like good, bad, shit, interesting, crunchy. I discovered that I just really like horses as animals. I'm a horse person. If I see a painting with a horse, I'll lose my mind. Like it's just, it's as simple as that. But like I didn't know that. So I think that like that fervour of like trying to write towards an answer of like, yes, but why do I like this? There's like just as much, if not more value in it for me. And I don't know if that's like universal for everyone. I think I spent so much time, like so many years writing about like how shit institutions were that like I just needed like a balance on the other side, you know?
Are you going to do the same this year?
I think I don't know. I think I want to write about shows that I enjoyed, but I think I also want to spend a lot of time chatting to people. I want to chat to more people this year. I want to ask people. I'm sick of mining myself for my opinion and asking myself questions. I just want to the world is so interesting and people are so fascinating and they've got so much to say, and I just love talking and listening, and I'm being nosy. So I think I'm going to do that this year. But it's interesting to return to this text and this like moment in time, like 2015, 16. We were writing this while we were still at uni.
Yeah.
Like you wrote this
at
as a student.
At the end of third year, yeah.
I think it's so interesting to return to this like mental headspace, like emotional space, right? Of like, I don't understand what the art world is or like what's out there. And like, I'm not in it, not really. But like that moment of like naivety where you're like trying to write towards an understanding. Like it's a process of discovery, writing, but also like, yeah, relating to things like they're brand new. I think it's nice to hold on to that naivety. Like we don't know all the answers, as much as I joke about like being critics and also lawmakers. As much as I joke about that's never, it's just not true. Like anyone who does that is lying. There's no objective truth. But maybe I'm just like a nostalgic person, but I don't know. I've got so much love and generosity for like Baby Gab and Zarina. I love them. Like, I really do. I look back on our 2015, 2016 selves and I've got so much patience and generosity and like love for that moment in time and like the people we were. That like, it doesn't matter how shit the writing is looking back. Like, I'm still like, you baby geniuses. Like how did you manage to do that? Like, we amaze me. Like,
I've not written a better sentence than this exhibition is a stomach settling.
It's the particular and insular rationale of ingredient and appendage for me. That's good. That's good. That's my most favourite bit. Like but you're spitting these words out like you don't even know what they mean to you until they hit the page.
Yeah,
it's like a poet. It has like a
jazz
poetry to hit that text.
Jazz poetry.
It is, because like poetry, like it doesn't work like. Poetry doesn't work as like verbal coherence. It works as like ambient coherence, right? Like it's about mood and flavour and feeling and vibes. Like it's just like a vibey thing. And I feel like that's what this text is doing. It's like speaking in the same rhythm of the exhibition.
And
I think you managed to do that really well.
Thank you.
This review is a 10 out of 10 for me.
But I think that's why I'm like spinning my wheels on how to write this God of War review, because it's not got as much like elasticity between me and the game or something. Like it's just not there. It's like this object, like it's a tight object that is, you know, covered from every angle, and it is in a sense watertight. So the review that I write about it feels like it would have to be in response to that, whereas exhibitions are full leakages. The room is completely flooded, so writing about it feels like there's is way more space and magic, and I'm like, I just don't know where to start. And I think maybe because it's the first review since we began the year, but also since we had our December break, like part of me wishes I would have started with a more poetic beginning as like exercise to lead into the rest of the year, but I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll put some similes in there. Make us proud.
The White Pube playbook is just simile.
Well,
rule number 1, commit to similes.
The other thing is like, usually I'm in the routine of like experience, cultural object, make notes, and then write about it, and then publish. And it's a very like tight week or 2 week period. I played God of War in November, and now I'm writing about it. So there is a gap, and I feel more out of touch with myself as the writer of the text. So, and the notes that I made at the time were not sufficient. So I fucked myself.
But like, you don't know I don't know what I think until I write it. So it doesn't matter often
exactly
what notes I write in the exhibition.
Yeah.
Right? It just kind of, you can't take notes to like predict your own discovery of a response, I think.
No. And I think like I don't know how many people listening will be writers, but like that's such a writer thing. It's such a thing that writers know. And maybe not artists as much, I think. It'll be fine. I'll be fine. I'm just sharing the anxieties on my mind. But sharing the anxieties is also true to this podcast. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, sharing what's on the inside as a way to like colour why the rest of the things are being said.
That's White Pube playbook rule 2.
Meta. It's like meta White Pube.
Similes, meta. But by the time this podcast goes out, will the God of War text be out already?
It'll be out.
You should link that in the description. So now this is a really good trailer for the text. Marketing genius.
That was the plan all along. Okay.
That was smooth.
Thank you for listening to this revisited episode. We've got a few more things planned podcast wise. We're going to be doing some interviews with artists in the next few episodes, and we'll find some more texts to revisit as well. Thank you especially to our Patreon supporters and PayPal and Ko-fi, and to everyone on the Discord who makes it such a nice place to be. We have recently resurrected our YouTube channel, so if you've been listening to this on podcast platforms, FYI, there was a video up as well. So if you are someone who prefer visuals, like, that's there in the future. And
also Gab puts videos of like her vlogging. Plug that, because I love it.
There will be hopefully a new vlog out by the time this podcast comes out. So that's disgusting. But also it was my New Year's resolution to try and film more stuff in life. And I am having fun. I just hate the word vlog. I hate it so much. It is such an ugly word.
As I said vlogging, I was like, I wish there was a different... Gab's become a real life filmmaker.
A diarist.
Everyday filmmaker.
Video
diarist. A visual... A cinematic diarist.
It's not that good. Don't get your hopes up or expectations. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the podcast. Bye.
Bye.
White